Today we're going to do a quick tutorial. It's not going to be that quick, but a quick tutorial in Davinci Resolve. The object of today's tutorial is taking your GoPro material, putting it into Davinci, making some swift edits to it, making some transitions to it, and then color grading it and delivering it in the best format possible for YouTube. Now, I know a lot of you actually know how to do this already, but when I was learning Davinci myself, or I'm still learning, I actually found that in some of the videos that were beginner videos, I learned a great deal by just paying attention, because sometimes there are a little thing here and a little thing there that you actually don't know, and you keep on making the same mistakes because you didn't know that little detail. So for that reason, pay attention, and I hope you can use this for something. Let's jump into Davinci right now. So this is Davinci 17. What we're going to be looking at today is only two of the pages. As you see to the bottom here, there are a number of different pages you can go to. The only ones we're going to be concentrating on today is the edit page, this one, and the color page, this one. So going into the edit page, before we do anything else, what you want to do is you want to go to playback, you want to go to render cache, you want to turn on smart. Now what this does is essentially when you're pulling in a clip and the clip is too much for your computer to handle, it's gonna go over the clip and kind of cache it on your hard drive, making it easier for you to view it. We'll get back to this. So the very first thing you want to do is you want to import a clip into your Davinci. Now, I have one here. We're just gonna take this clip and pull it in. It's gonna ask if you want to change a project frame rate. You don't want to do this. The reason you don't want to do this is because it's often wrong, and we want to set these things manually. So we have our clip up here. Before we do anything else, we click it, right-click it, and we choose Clip Attributes, and we notice what the frame rate is. So here the frame rate is 100. Then we go out here, we click somewhere in the field here to not select this clip anymore. Right-click, select Choose Timeline, Create New Timeline, and here we're going to name it. So naming is pretty important. It's a very small step, but it's very important as well. Basically, whenever you do a new timeline, a timeline is the container containing all of your edits. It's going to be named timeline 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So for that reason, I wouldn't advise you to actually call it something like intro, because the next one you're going to call something else, and it's going to sort them alphabetically rather than when they were made. So when you do a timeline, I suggest that you name it after it says timeline 1. So this, for example, says timeline 1 intro. If I was to make a new timeline now, it would be called timeline 2, and I can then name it something after. They're still going to be in chronological order. You name it, then you unclick project settings, you go to format, and this is the first step. So here you want to select 4K. Even if you have a HD or 2.7K clip, because it actually upscales it. And upscaling does a little bit to the quality of the image. It makes it a little bit nicer. So you pick 4K, you then pick the right frame rate, which in this case is a 100, and then you click Create. So what happened now is that now we have two things up here. We have our clip, we have our timeline. If you were to have more timelines, let's duplicate this one. Now we have two timelines. If I double click this one, this area down here now belongs to this timeline. If I double click this one, we're back in the first one. That's how timelines work. So we have our timeline right now. We're gonna pull our clip down here and into it. Once we've pulled the clip in, ignore everything else, just look at this slider here. This is the zoom in and zoom out, and this goes from where the playhead, the red one, is. So let's position it somewhere here, and we're gonna zoom out. Now we have the whole clip in view. We're gonna just select a small portion of this clip. Let's, this is just a lot of stuff here. Let's actually just select here. So we're gonna put our playhead here, and we're gonna start off by cutting off what we don't want. Now you can use these icons up here, but the main ones we're going to be using is this one, Blade Edit, which shortcut is B, and Select, which shortcut for this one is A. So we're going to position ourselves on top of what we want to cut and press B. Now, pay close attention here. If we have the cursor close to the red line, it will cut where the red line is. If we move it a little bit further away, it gets its own red line. That's where it's going to be cutting instead. So it snaps to cutting. So we want to cut here, and we click, and now it's cut. Then we press A, because now we can select the clips rather than cutting. And then if we want to remove this part over here, we select it, and then we either press Delete or we press Backspace. The difference being that Delete deletes it, and it doesn't touch the rest of the timeline, so it leaves a big gap. You can also select this gap and then delete that, or Backspace it. Or you could actually go back and mark the clip right away and press delete, and then it removes both the clip and the space the clip occupied. This is rather important because once you have a lot of clips and you have a lot of sound effects and everything going at once, and you select the small clip and you hit delete instead of backspace, it's going to move the entire timeline and bringing everything out of sync. So backspace is what I always use. I very rarely use delete. We've now trimmed the beginning of the video. We're going to have an endpoint, which is this one here. I'm going to basically cut it, and then we're going to remove it. So now we have our clip. Now our little clip right here is just one clip. We're going to need at least 2 clips to make it a scene. So we're just going to drag the whole thing down again, and we're going to select another clip. Let's select, yeah, that one. That's going to be good. This one here, gonna trim, let's see what that was. There we go. We're going to go over here. I just cut it and then I move them together. So the way moving them together works is that you have this little magnet icon here. If you unclick this, you will be seamlessly moving, and it's going to be very hard for you to find that actual space where they fit together. If you click the magnet, it's going to snap in place, which is very good. So now you see we have a blue line up here and some red pieces over here. So the red pieces is what it's going to actually it has some trouble rendering those until you've played over them. Once you've played over them, it runs the whole thing very, very smooth. So this is Davinci's way of unpackaging the file, doing what you want to be done to it, and then playing it back to you smoothly. Another thing you could do instead is that, let's scroll over here and pull the whole clip down. If you notice when I'm scrolling in this clip here, it's not entirely smooth. It's almost as smooth as it can be. What you can do to make it smoother is that you can select your clip. We're just going to do this on one of the small clips. Right-click it and select Generate Optimized Media. What this does is that in Davinci it now creates a cache file where it unpacks the GoPro footage. And the reason for doing this is that GoPro is filmed in H.264 or H.265, which is a compressed format. So it's going to be very choppy when you scroll through it. If you do this, it now has a cached file lying on the hard drive, which is unpackaged, and you use that for completely smooth scrolling. Now the place where this is stored is if you go to File, Project Settings, and you scroll down, there's a cache files location, this one. In here, it's going to store all those cache clips. It's very important to take note of where that is because this library can get very, very, very big. It's basically, if you do just a short FPV movie and you do a lot of cache clips, you can run into 100 gigabytes in cache files there. So when you're done with your project, when you've generate optimized media on everything and you've done all your edits and the whole project is done and you've exported the video file and you uploaded this to YouTube, go in there, delete all the files, and they won't take up any space. Now let's go back. So we have these 2 clips. If we play them back to back, it's going to go like this and like that. This is just the way they transition. Now you can alter the point of this by selecting middle between the clips and actually pulling. And then you're going to be selecting where the transition should happen instead. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is, of course, just to chop in places. If you want to chop here, remove that, and then remove it closer, and you're going to end up with whatever it is that you want. Now, once you're happy with the position of your clips, you want to make a transition. So a transition can be done in many ways, but mainly you have your effects tab over here, and your effects tab is this area over here. This is your media pool area over here, and this over here is your inspector. So you're going to be using the effects tab for this portion, but you can also use other things. So let's go through them one by one. First, you have your video transitions. Click one of these and then hover your mouse over whatever transition it is you want and just move your mouse slowly, and it's going to show you a preview of what that transition is going to be like. Once you're happy with it, you're going to pull it out and place it either there on the first clip, in the middle, or on the second clip. We're just going to place it on the first clip for now. Now, when we try to play this back, you can see, oh, it suddenly becomes red. This means that Davinci is actually caching this and working on it so it can display it smoothly. The more you play it, the faster it's going to go. So now it did the whole thing here, and now we can see our clip. If we wanted this transition to be in a different spot, we can either pull on it and make it smaller or bigger, or we can actually highlight the clip, and this is where the inspector portion comes in. So The inspector up here, this one, basically is the toolbox for whatever you have highlighted. So if I click this right here, this clip, the inspector now belongs to this. I can go to video and I have all my details. I can click the transition. I now have all the transition. I can click clip number 2 and go back to the video, and I now have all the details there, like zooming and so on and so forth. For this purpose right now, we're going to click the transition. And up here, we can now decide, first of all, where is our transition going to be? Is it going to be residing on the first clip, in the middle, or on the second clip? Let's put it in the middle and just stretch it out a little bit. Now we're going to play it a few times, make sure that it's going to be nice and smooth, make sure all the red lines are gone, and now we have our transition. Let's say that this is how we wanted it. Now, the other thing you could do right here in the beginning, and this is also a very important thing for GoPro material, is that once you have your clip in here, you can highlight the clip and you can go to video in the inspector tab. In here, you can do all sorts of things like zooming, you can position the image, and so on and so forth. You can rotate it, you can do all these things. You can also reset everything up here and go back to normal. But for GoPro material, often people tend to film this in wide. And in wide, it means that the car would be stretched. It would basically be bent out of shape. So for that reason, we have the lens correction down here. And the lens correction, you can move the slider and actually de-stretch. So the footage you're watching right now is filmed in linear, which means that nothing is being stretched from the beginning. But for the purpose of this, if this was your wide material, you would actually go here and you would pull the distortion in one way or the other until it doesn't appear stretched anymore. And this means that your whole footage would then be de-stretched. So that's a very good way of playing with your wide GoPro material. Now, let's keep this pretty simple. So we have clip 1, we have clip 2, and we have a transition. Now that we have these, what we want to do is we want to color grade them. So what we do is we click down here on the color tab. This brings us into this whole area. So what this area is essentially, and if it doesn't look like this, let's try to make it look like this from the beginning. Over here you have gallery, you have LUTs, you have media pool. So media pool is where your files are. LUTs is a predefined color grade that you can put on your clip. And gallery. Gallery is the most interesting one for now, so let's keep it on gallery. On the right side over here you have clips, which is your clips down here. You can see clip 1 and clip 2. By clicking this one, you remove and you add them. You have nodes. So you want the nodes. This is a node, and this node is belonging to this, this image. Basically what a node is a node is containing all the color grade changes you have inside a little box. And the reason for this is you can add several nodes and put them in sequence, and then you can let them alter each other, and you can get a better overview of what you're doing, and you can save specific things in specific nodes. So let's demonstrate how the node actually works. Right now we have an image here, and it should be pointed out that when you have your clips over here, clip 1 and clip 2, let's say we select clip 1, then this timeline right here is only for that clip 1. If we put it up here and we play, it's going to go to clip 2. There we go. Let's go back to clip 1, go up here again and press this one. Now we're going to stay in clip 1 all the time, which is pretty useful. So we're going to find a good spot here. Then we're going to go down here into the left area. Left area here is where you're going to do most of your color grading. You have a bunch of different tabs here you can experiment with. The most important one is this one, primaries, color wheels. So primaries, color wheels right here is being determined by which one of the 3 you choose over here. So the first one is primaries, color wheels. The next one is color bars. The last one is log wheels. We're going to go to primaries, color wheels, and leave it there. To the right, you have over here, you should have your scopes up. If you don't have them, click this one right here and then select parade. You can also select a lot of other things, but for this tutorial, we're going to select parade. Now, what you're going to do now is you're going to have a look at the scopes and the parade. This shows what kind of information you have in the picture. As you can see here, you have a top line and you have a bottom line. You don't want to go past the top line, you don't want to go below the bottom line. So over here you have the gain. So the gain you can pull out and change the colors. Let's reset this one. Down here you have a wheel that can go left or right. So if you pull it right, you brighten up the picture, and as you can see, we're losing a ton of information. If you go left, you darken the picture and you lose a ton of information. Let's reset that again. Then you have the gamma. So the gamma is basically a gamma like on your screen. So it kind of alters the midpoint and raises everything. Let's reset this. And then you have the lift, which lifts the whole picture. Now, the way these three work together is that you look over here and you see, okay, what is it I want to do? I can see there's quite a bit of ways down to the bottom. We're almost at the top. So let's start by taking the gain and pulling it up slightly, but not going past the top line. Let's then take the lift and pull it down. So pull it to the left until we're touching the bottom. The further you go to the bottom, the more you squish the image, which is not something we want to do. So we just want to get it down there. Already now we have a significant difference between the original image and the new one. Let's have a look here. So this is the original, and this is just by pulling those sliders. So we get a way more defined image. So the first thing you want to do is you want to increase your gain and lower your gamma or your lift until you get an image where you feel that this is a nice image. The next thing I like to do, and this is for GoPro specific, a GoPro camera can film in either low, medium, or high sharpness. I never film in high because you can never take away sharpness, but you can always add sharpness. So I always film in low or medium. This shot here has been filmed in medium, and as you see, it's actually pretty sharp. I don't like it being too sharp, so what I do is I go for this one called mid detail. Let's say I click my mouse on it and pull all the way to the right. We're increasing it to 100. Look at how sharp that is now. That is very sharp compared to original. I can also pull it to minus 100. Look at how soft it is compared to the original. What I like to do is I like to give it minus 20. This just gives it a really nice soft effect that doesn't appear soft but is soft, if that makes sense. The next thing I do is I add a bit of contrast. So how much contrast you add depends on you. It's a style choice. It's you can either go nuts on the contrast, like so, original, or you can go soft on the contrast, like so, and original. So for this purpose, I think what we want to do is we want to zoom in by using the middle wheel, getting some contours here, and then we want to increase the contrast to a point where we feel that it enhances the image, but it doesn't ruin it. So we've just added a little bit of contrast here. So what we've done now is we've basically raised the gain, we've lowered the lift, and we've added a little bit of contrast. But this makes a huge difference to the image. So this is the original image, and this is after. Looks much, much nicer. So let's say we're happy with this right now. What we actually want to do is we want to right-click this and choose Add Node. So now we're adding a new node, which means that everything we've done so far contains itself in this node. Everything we're going to make now is going to be in this node. And for that reason, we're going to click the first node and choose Node Label. And then we're just going to write basic, because that's our basic correction. Then we're going to go on to the second node. And in this second node, we want to do some more stuff. Let's say we want to play a little bit with the colors. So we're going to do color. Now, the brightest colory thing in this image has to be the break calibers. So what we want to do is we want to go down here to saturation, and we can increase that or decrease that. You could also use the color boost, but the color boost affects the whole image. So for now, let's actually just increase the value of this. I can see there's a red person up here, whatever that is. Actually, what is that? Ooh, that's not a person, that's a box. So there's a red box up there. We have a yellow thing here. We're going to increase the saturation until we feel that it's more, but not too much, like so. Now we have a basic color correction, or not a color correction, a color saturation add here. Actually, let's name it saturation for that purpose. We're going to right-click the node and add a new serial node. So in this serial node, we want to actually be creative. We want to do something. Now we're going to go from color wheels all the way over to log wheels right here. And in the log wheels, we have shadow, midtone, highlights, and offset. Now you can change a lot of stuff drastically over here by pulling on it. We don't want to do that. But by pulling on this thing here, you're offsetting the colors in a manner. So let's say this is a very greenish image. Once you've offset that, you can then also pull this slider left or right to accentuate that offset. But we're not actually going to be using offset. What we're going to be doing here is we're going to play with the shadow and the midtone. So we're going to name it shadow mid, like that. First we're going to take the shadow, we're going to pull it slightly over towards the blue and the teal. Already now you can see a change in the image. Then we're going to accentuate it more by giving it a little bit more darkness. Then we're going to take the midtone, we're going to do the same, just a little bit wilder. And then I advise you to actually pull the slider like a lot and see what happens, because that's the way you kind of get a feel for what it's actually doing. So let's pull over here and then slightly begin changing the image just a little bit. So what we've done now is we've gone from the original image to this, which is a very big difference. We've basically heightened the brightness, we've lowered the lift, we've added some contrast, we've added a little bit more color, and now we've added a little bit of a blue tint, blue teal-ish tint to the whole image. So already this is a done color grade. And all of this you can do with the free version. You could also go wilder with this. You can also play with stuff like this, like curves. This is also a way where you can obtain exactly the same things I've done right now, just using the curves. The very basic way of doing this is that you click on whatever you want to change. So the white, red, green, blue, let's take the red. You click on the line, insert a point, you can then alter this point. You click on another place and you can then alter this point, and you can keep pulling these things, and you can also reset them out here. So I highly encourage you to actually play with these things. But for now, we feel that this color grade is actually good enough. If we then want to save our color grade, what we do is we right click on the actual image and we choose grab still. This creates a thumbnail over here, but this thumbnail actually contains all the information. So if we now go to our second clip right here, which has no color grade on it, it has a node, but the node is empty, reset node grade, there's nothing on it. We can now take this node, we can now take this still up here and put our mouse over it and simply just hover over it to see our color grade being applied as we scroll through it. Or we can right click it and choose apply grade. So now all our nodes comes up over here. And this is a fantastic way of working for many reasons. First of all, it's a good way of making color grades for yourself, but it's also a very good way of making changes to, let's say you have a lot of clips. So all of these are off the card, but some of them are a little bit darker, some of them are a little bit lighter. That way you can apply the basic color grade to all of them and then go in and adjust some of them. For the advanced stuff, which we're not going to be touching now, but this is some of the things that you can do in the advanced version, you have all these filters over here. Some of these do actually work in Davinci, so let's touch on just one of them. What we're going to do is we're going to make a new node, add serial. We have a new node here, and let's pick something. I'm not entirely sure what works in the normal one and what doesn't work. So let's do something simple. I think a vignette works. So I'm just going to pick a vignette and pull it onto the node I want. Doing so opens up the vignettes toolbox area. So in here, you just basically set the setting that it is you want. And once you've done that, you have now applied the vignette onto your image. Let's actually see this clip again. There's a lot more stuff to be covered here, and I will be touching on it later. The only thing I want to say as the end in the end of this is that white balance is something that's very important as well. Now we've taken a clip from the outside, so white balance is a bit more finicky here. But so the idea is you find something in your scene that you know is white, and then let's go back here to the first node, right click it and choose add serial node before, because we want our white balance to be before everything else in the picture. Then you go over here to the dropper tool, click it, and then you pick something you know that is white. So you have to have something in the scene that you know is actually white, and you then click on it. And once you do that, the whole scene changes because it sets the white balance based off that one point. And this actually makes quite a radical change or difference. So if you take a look at it before we did it and after we did it. What it actually does by setting the white balance is it changes these two parameters. So the temperature and the tint. You could do this manually as well. So you can actually play with these and make the white balance the way you want it. Of course, it should be said that now we've added some blue hue to it, we've added some blue tint, we've added some stuff in the shadows and mids. So even if we set a correct white balance now, it's going to be affected by what we did later. So in the future, if you want to play around with the white balance and everything, of course, do this at the beginning. Sorry about that, but it's a pretty important point. Regardless, now you know how to do everything, and it should be pretty fast for you to do all of this. So let's do this one more time, very fast. We have a complete clear image right here. We have nothing going on. Everything is reset. We're going to take our white balance tool, click, set a white balance. We're actually not even going to add nodes. We're just going to do the things. So we're going to raise this up a little bit. We're going to go to this one, raise this up a little bit, lower this down. Let's lower it down to about here. Then we can also add some shadows here, which is brightening up the midpoints. We're going to add a little bit of contrast. We're going to go into log, mid-tone out here. We're going to add some shadow out here. And now we basically have the same image as before. So now that we're done with our entire clip here, what we want to do is we want to export this into a format that is easily readable by YouTube and containing the best quality that you can possibly get. There's actually very little secret to this. So what you do is you click on the deliver page down here. Once you do this, you're being taken to this page where the first thing you're going to do is you're going to name your file something. You're going to pick a location for it. We're just going to put it here. And then you go down here to the export video tab. I always choose QuickTime because apparently YouTube just treats this best. I pick H.264 because it works best for me. And then here we have the native or NVIDIA. Native is that it's using the CPU to encode everything with, which is your only option if you have the free version. Or you can pick NVIDIA if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, which will make everything go faster. For now, let's just pick native. The resolution is being set by your timeline, so is the frame rate. And all of this down here, just leave it at default. Then you hit add to render queue, and then you click render all. In the top left corner, you can see here, it's rendering this clip with 27, 29 FPS, 38 FPS. It's going up and down. And down here, you can see that it's kind of chugging through the whole clip. So once it's done with this, there's going to be a file that is simply going to be named something, whatever you named it. It's going to be in QuickTime in H.264 format, and you can pull this straight into YouTube and upload it for the best possible quality. Davinci is very easy to get lost in, and I encourage you to actually try and just experiment. Because oftentimes when you're playing with nodes like I was, you could do everything in one node, but doing them in several different nodes gives you the opportunity later to go and actually take a node in the middle of something and just go, what happens if I do this? And by doing something in a node in the middle, it will affect all the subsequent nodes. And that can sometimes give you some fantastic creative touches that you wouldn't have come by otherwise. So that wasn't that hard, huh? So basically, this is a simple color grading tutorial in Davinci 17. I hope it's useful for you, and I hope you take the time to actually experiment some more. Go in, take a clip, mess around with it, grab a still of it. Once you have that still, once you have that backup of your color grading, make another one and experiment and just tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak, because that's the only way to learn. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think, or if there's something else you want to see, and I'll see you next time. Bye.